A 3,000 point Horus Heresy army. Painted in 1 month. Alongside repairs, replacements, adding new bits to it, an entire colossal project fit for any event table, done within the space of 20 days, if not a little bit quicker. In one video, I'm going to show you how I rescued a project, how I went about repairing and replacing bits that needed it, writing a list so it'd be ready for the table, and then of course, how to get it all painted in no time whatsoever using some really great products, while also compromising between time and finish. This is Unrelenting Hobby. This is January's monthly muster, the Horus Heresy, Age of Darkness, Death Guard, Sons of Mortarion. Stay tuned. Hi guys, I'm Chris from Unrelenting Hobby. Thank you very, very much for watching my video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that cringy, horrible social media nonsense I can't stand. It helps me out massively and enables me to be able to do what I'm doing now for the foreseeable, which would be fucking incredible. Monthly Muster is my monthly project that I pick from any game system, any scale, any producer, any company, and I dedicate a month to a project for that. So for this month, I've done Games Workshop's Age of Darkness Horus Heresy system with a 3,000 point Death Guard army. Now, there's a few reasons I chose this. First of all, I bought this army secondhand from Facebook Marketplace, summer last year, maybe autumn. Stashed it aside, I got it for a really, really good price, and I thought I'll save that for a rainy day and it'll be a fun little project. As last year went to a close, I decided to commit to monthly muster, and I thought for January this Death Guard army would be fantastic for a few reasons. First off, it is a rescue project. There are a few things here that needed looking at. There are a lot of repairs to be made, some missing components, and a few things that I needed to do to make myself happy with the standard that this army would be. Second of all, because some of it was a little bit rough, because there was a little bit of paint on there already, and to strip the entire army would have taken a month by itself with a shed load of IPA and containers and just a massive sink of time. Death Guard kind of lends itself a little bit more to that rough aesthetic. I was able to cover most of the sins and work around those quite nicely. Overall, I think unless you're picking them up and looking at them and I told you where the issues are, I think you'll struggle to find where any problems are with this army. Third of all, Horus Heresy armies are incredibly fun to paint. They are a really nice balance of kind of real-world historical realism in terms of like your weathering and your battlefields and kind of like the narrative your models want to tell with a lot of weathering and battle damage. Grimdark, I believe the term is. Second of all, I adore the setting. I'm a huge Horus Heresy fan. There's not many elements of it I don't enjoy in terms of the hobby. So being able to do an army that I wouldn't normally do for myself was amazing. I did do a Death Guard army for a commission friggin' 6-7 years ago. And thinking about how they turned out compared to how these turned out, I think the natural progression of my hobby is absolutely wicked, and I'm really happy with those. And finally, I wanted to do something for a good friend of mine, Dave Barfield. So Dave suddenly found himself on the wrong end of a shit stick just before Christmas. He got let go from his job with minimal notice. It was about 5 days before Christmas. Dave wants to open his own hobby shop, and I've known Dave for many years now. He's a wonderful guy, and I wanted to do something to support him to achieve his goals. I don't have any money, but what I can do is I can paint models to give to him to raffle. So the entirety of this army, everything you see in front of you, the 3,000 points, all fully painted by myself, can be yours for £3 an entry. The more entries you give, the more chance you have to win, and then Dave will sort that, and hopefully you will win yourself this massive army. I've got nothing but love for Dave, and I'm happy to help in any way, shape, form I can, and I think the value of helping him to be able to achieve his goal of opening a shop, while also maybe, touch wood, you getting yourself a fully painted Heresy army would be amazing. So the link will be wherever it is in YouTube. So check it out, give it a click, give Dave the support and love, and thank you very much. So, the army itself. The army in terms of its efficacy or its lore or its kind of situation within Heresy. I was torn between doing a Loyalist Death Guard army in that really nice Black Library art of the marble white and the deep forest green, or doing a more traditional sepia, weathered, oily, grimy, kind of traditional Death Guard scheme. As you can see, I chose the latter. I did a couple of testers, and I was more happy with this scheme, and I think it's purely because I was so enamored by the green. It's 2 paints, which is freaking amazing, and it just has so much punch, and I think it's really measured that balance of, again, heresy, realism, real world, kind of historical hobby with lots of elements of real world battlefields and detritus and stuff like that. But that punchy green, the sci-fi, the luminous colours, the fact that Space Marines are silly by nature. So I think it's a really nice balance of all that. The army list itself, when I got the army, there was enough here to get an army on the table, but not really enough to kind of make it do what it needs to do, especially since I got this just on the cusp as 3.0 came out. So there was a shed load of tactical marines for line spamming, which is fine. There was a boatload of rhinos, which again, fine. If that's your meta, you do what you want to do, you friggin' nerd. I wanted to add a little bit more flavour. I wanted to add a dreadnought, because to me, a Space Marine army is fuck all without a dreadnought, because they're just so cool. And then on top of that, I wanted to add some flavour. I wanted to add some inducti, some more characters, and keep it Death Guard kind of appropriate with the Typhon Heavy Siege tank. Minimal transports for the guys, but make sure they're assault transports. And then some siege tanks. So you've got your Scorpius, your Predators, and then a big flaming Predator, because Alcan Flamers. So writing the list, I wanted to ensure it was narrative in terms of its lore and kind of doing justice, but I also wanted it to be able to do what it needs to do on the table without being stupid and spamming tap marines and stuff like that. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what we've got. So here you can see the army as it was when I got it home. There were a few extra bits that I've not included that wouldn't have made the list like what I wanted it to be, so I took those out. But overall, the price for this was an absolute steal. I couldn't say no to it. But as you can see, everything was pretty much primed. There was already some green down and stuff. There was a lot of rough paintwork there. For some reason, the front facings on a lot of the tanks weren't glued into place. There was some green stuff there. I'm not quite sure what the intent was there. But overall, I could work with this no problem. So here's some of the leftovers, a Predator, a Rhino, and some Tap Marines. As you can see, everything was pretty much built. Everything was primed. I'm guessing Grace here. There was some green already down on gun shields and shoulder pads, which I'm going to guess is Death Guard green or whatever it's called from Citadel. Build-wise, there was some gaps and stuff. There was a lot of stuff that was loosely fitted. A lot of the Marines you could talk and they'd fall apart, so I did a lot of re-gluing to get those back into fashion. But again, for the money I paid, this was an absolute steal. Gaps in tank chassis like that you can fix relatively easily. You might get a remnant of a gap, but again, that's what we can sort later on. Nothing but a bit of super glue and some high-strength elastic bands. There's the front-facing green stuff issue that you see I mentioned earlier. No idea what was happening here, but again, nothing that we can't fix. A lot of the cupolas and the pinter weapons weren't valid for the tanks as well, so I had to pry those off and get replacements in. The Marines, again, exactly same state, all primed, all with a bit of green on. Nothing I can't work with. Again, if I wanted to strip them, I could have done, but I think time for effort and the finish I wanted, I could compromise and just not worry about it. So with these leftovers, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them. I might sell them, I might keep some rounders for the worldies. As you can see, these just like pull apart with minimal effort. I think they're all built with super glue, but we can work with it. They were all magnetized, well, I'm guessing are war mag magnets under the bases, which are fine. I'd rather them be recessed under the bases, but again, this isn't for me. This is for some lucky so-and-so out there. So by this stage, I got the army in front of me. I had a general idea of what I needed to do in terms of preparation to get everything kind of built ready for painting. What I needed to do now was get a list ready. So as I said at the start of the video, the list I wanted to be thematic, I wanted it to be effective, but most importantly, I wanted it to look like a really nice, narrative-driven, Death Guard appropriate army that will look sick on the table. So I played around a little bit. I realised early doors I was going to need to get some extra bits for this army. Thankfully, I have a whole trove of bits that I'll do someday. But for a good cause, and because I want this army to look the best I can do, I donated a few bits. I donated a Centurion Astartes, a Spartan Lamb Raider, and a Leviathan Dreadnought. And I think that was everything. From there, I started writing a list. So I'll put the list up here so you can see what it entailed. Now, there was a few other bits I was going to need to make this work. Breaches, I think, are incredibly Death Guard. By this time, we didn't have the Breacher upgrade frame out, and I don't really want to spend £30 on a frame anyway. So I looked for some files and downloaded those to print at home. Alongside that, I wanted Vexlers and Vox packs for my Marines, because they not only are really, really good in the game, but I think they make those Marines look amazing. Like, I found some really sick handheld Vexlers that I think are going to look wicked when they're painted. And I found some really nice, easy Mark II Vox packs that look the part on these Mark III Marines. Fairly sturdy, they're not going to break easily, and they're going to do a really good amount of work for getting this army to look the part and be decent on the table. I also wanted to add a little bit of flavour for myself. I like having unique things in an army so that no two armies are alike. I think it's a very personable, tangible thing for the hobby. So I found some really cool third-party heads on Gults and downloaded those. And again, because these are all built with super glue by the looks of it, I was able to pry off a load of heads and add these ones in. And I think they look absolutely wicked, and I think there's a few of them that are quite Legion agnostic, so you can sprinkle them in definitely into Iron Warriors, and I think they'll look fantastic. Other bits I needed to print some cupulas and some hatches, because the chap who built this army, assuming he's a chap, the person who built this army didn't do a great job at checking what was game legal and what wasn't, so I had to pry loads of those off. I don't have any spare hatches. Thankfully, I found some files and downloaded those, and everything printed with minimal issue. So by this stage, I had written my list, and I was happy with it, and I think it's semi-decent on the table, but most importantly, it's going to look great and be very classic Death Guard. From there, I printed the bits, I started prying bits off Marines and adding bits to Marines, and then I was getting them ready for the pre-basing. I also spent the time to build up the bits I needed, the Spartan, the Centurion, the Leviathan, and as you can see from the picture here of the Spartan I was building, I have got some really nice high-strength elastic bands. I think I got them from Amazon. They're fairly cheap, and they are great for when you're building these plastic tanks to keep them together to try and reduce any gaps. You don't need to gap fill if you nuke the bastards from orbit when you're building. Now, there was a few tanks pre-built that I needed to work on with gaps. All I did with those was, first off, push the chassis together to see if those gaps close. If they don't close, it's going to be a little bit of work. You're going to pry the glue out of there, file any bits of sprue excess, and you basically want to get it so that when you press it together, you've basically got no gap to show. Once you've done that and it's cleaned up, ready to go, hold those together, drop some super glue in, some thin super glue, be fine, thick super glue, wipe away any excess with a cloth dead quick while you can, and then press. Hopefully that should eliminate any gaps. If you've got some super glue accelerator, give it a quick dusting of that and that'll do. But again, if you've got those high strength elastic bands, wrap those around the middle to be really tight, then press, glue, spray, and you should eliminate all gaps. If there's any left over, you can gradually build up just a little bit of super glue just to try and get rid of those gaps. You can fill it with green stuff, but super glue is fast, and I got shit to do. So fill it with super glue, smooth it off with a nail file or any kind of soft file you've got to try and nuke them. And there's very, very, very few gaps on this at all across the army. Nothing that isn't going to be, covered with a bit of weathering and a bit of painting. Oh, alongside that, I had to 3D print some headlights. I like Marines to have all the gubbins, their pistol holsters, their grenade packs, their ammo packs. I like vehicles to have headlights, because how will they see in the dark if they can't? Blah, 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 Space Marines, Superhumans, whatever. So I found some really nice kind of third-party Baneblade-esque Imperial Guard / Sisters headlights. Downloaded those, printed them, added them to the vehicles, and again, it's just that little finish, that little aesthetic that I think makes an army look like an army. So our list written, our replacement bits printed, our repairs done, it was then time to pre-base. So pre-basing is where you texture your bases before you start painting. I infinitely prefer this to texturing and painting bases and stuff post-painting, because I always find once you've painted a unit and you're really happy with it and it looks great, and then you've got to base it, you slap the paste all over the base, and then you've got to wait hours for it to dry or overnight, and it just kind of kills that hobby buzz, that hobby. So I prefer to do it before I prime. The prime helps it stick down a little bit better, and it doesn't matter what colour it is when we prime it, because we're just going to paint it later anyway. I had an idea of what I wanted to base them. I wanted it to contrast the armour quite nicely. I wanted it to be quite dark and dusty and grimy and kind of giving the subtle hint of irradiation and semi-barren dusty Mars. And I think it's going to look really, really good when I committed to it. So, we're built, we're repaired, all the bits are where we need to be. Now it's time for the really, really important bit, and that is getting started with painting. So, let's go. So before we start talking about what primer we use, we're going to talk about sub-assemblies. Most of the vehicles have their sponsons and turrets left off, with a few additional weapons kept separate where possible, but you'll get by with them fine. Characters, I built this Praetor with his cloak and his power pack off, just to make life a bit easier. I've not decided what colours we're going to do these cloaks yet. I'll save that for later and see how the army turns out, and then I can balance those colours as need be. And then again, with this power pack, just for the ease of painting that and the cape, we just kept it off. The Centurion I built fully, which I might regret later, but we'll see. And the Herald came with the army. I like the banner. I'm not sure how we're going to make it look decent for 30k when it was made for 40k, but we'll worry about that in a bit. Here's our tester that I completed earlier. Here's how we're going to try and emulate the scheme across the whole army. I think it's a really nice balance of speed and efficiency with a great finish, a nice dusty base, and tying in that weathering against those great clashing colours of sepia bone and bright, punchy, almost snot green. So this is the end result we're going to aim for across the entire army. Our primer is Colourforge Matte Black. These are big rattle cans for a great cost, superb value, and I wholeheartedly endorse them. They've got a lovely matte black finish and last longer than their competitors while costing less. Treat yourself, yo! We're going to apply this over the entirety of our models and our army, ensuring we get the underside and the top side to get a nice even coverage of black across the entire range. Now, the majority of the paints we use for this project are Monument Hobby's Pro Acryl. First up is Dark Ivory. This is going to be our initial base colour and our darkest shade on the model for our bone colour. I'll be applying this with an airbrush, doing it as a semi-zenithal, covering most of the upward and sideways angles while leaving some of that black in the recesses. If you don't use an airbrush, grab some ossified earth from Colourforge, or any equivalent, maybe Xandri dust or whatever Citadel equivalent you prefer, and do a similar dusting with this. Just zenithal it from our top right angle, ensuring you cover the top side and sides of the model while leaving those dark recesses black. Here you can see the result we're going for. I might have over-zenithed this chap and made him a little bit brighter than I should have done, but I don't think that's an issue. I think we can make that work. These are characters after all, so it doesn't matter if they shine a little bit more than the mooks and troops around them. As you can see, I tried to keep this off the cape, but again, no stress if we overspill. I will stress this to everyone. This is not an exercise in perfection or skilling or kind of making sure this is the best thing you've ever painted. This is a product of compromise. We're going to have a really cool army painted to a good standard using great products, minimal amounts of those products, while also ensuring that we get a great result with a great turnaround in little time. Up next, we're going to take some olive flesh from the same paint range and we're going to do this as our mid-tone highlight. So we're going to focus this on the areas we've already zenithalled, but keep them more central and ensure we've got some of that shading in the surrounding areas where we spray. So good examples for this is the head, the wider parts of the legs, the arms, the shoulders, the hands, ensuring that we've got a nice separation of that dark colour from before and this nice brighter colour. So here you can see the effect we're going for. So we've got a little bit of separation in colour. Don't worry about the back too much. Remember, he's got that whopping great cape that's going to go over him. But overall, this is really nice separation of colour. It's plotted well to the other characters. I've focused on the banner a little bit too much because we're going to do some striping and green with that, but we'll worry about that later. Again, this isn't about doing the best thing you've ever painted or trying to upscale. This is about having a good time, getting a good result. And it's not just about trusting the process, it's enjoying the process. So have fun with it. Up next, it's time to be brave. We've got some black green from Pro Acryl. Now I'm going to apply this to the shoulder pads with my airbrush because it's got a very, very fine needle that I can be relatively accurate with it without worrying about overspray. If you don't have an airbrush, just apply it with a brush. It's not a problem. These paints are great. They're highly pigmented. You can thin them down to the nth degree. It's my favorite acrylic range to use, so definitely check it out. If you don't have Pro Acryl, try Caliburn Green from Citadel or whatever paint brand you prefer. Now it's time for the hero of this project. This is bright yellow green. This is what we're going to do for that really punchy, sickly snot green that's going to make this army look absolutely wicked. Again, being brave with your airbrush if you've got one, apply this to the center of the shoulder pad, gradually doing light circles, ensuring you keep that dark black green in the outer recesses. If you don't have an airbrush, you can apply this with stippling or a makeup sponge. Moot green's the Citadel equivalent. Now this paint is very translucent, so it's going to take a couple of passes with the airbrush. You might need to build it up gradually with your brush or your equivalent, but it's definitely worth it because once you get this up in a couple of layers, it is so punchy and so vibrant. And then by the time we put our oils down and our varnishes, it's going to look even bloody better. So here you can see how he's looking. Those colours are super nice and vibrant and rich, and it's going to be great when we mucky them down and get them all filthy naughty later. You can see when I hold this power pack upside down how much of that dark recess is still there from the black primer to the black green, and then we just want that really nice punchy green on the top layers and surfaces and the edges. And that's how we build that really nice kind of gradient from the black to the dark green to the pale sickly lime green. We're going to do some funny stuff with the flag in a minute. Let's see how that goes. The Horus Heresy is all about stripes. We love stripes, we love contrasting colours, and I think that Herald is now going to start looking the part. I wasn't sure on him at first, but he's growing on me quickly. Now we're going to whack out our orange brushes and do some brush work. Black Legion contrast is great. It's basically like repriming bits that you've primed a light colour. We're going to do this on the black carapace, the undersuit, and any of those interesting bits between the armour panels just to break up those colours a little bit. Take your time, be patient, don't overload your brush. And this shouldn't take too long at all, especially with the Mark III Marines. There's not a lot of in-between armor detail on those guys. Up next, we've got some Darkwood speed paint. We're going to use this for the straps, the holsters, any additional kind of webbing and gubbins that these guys have on them. It's a really great neutral colour you can use for just about anything. Speed paints and contrast paints to me are amazing because you can use them for any neutral job, any kind of ancillary accessory, and as long as you've got a neutral speed paint colour over a light colour, you're fine and you're set. You don't need to overthink it or worry too much, just whack some colours down. And again, there's not a lot on these guys, there's not a lot on this army, there's not a lot on the Heresy for Marines, to be fair. It's just a few holsters and, like I say, some ammo packs, so a nice excuse for a splash of colour to break up those armour colours. Up next, it's a weapon hafts, so any kind of binding or leather around weapon handles. It's a nice excuse to add kind of like a tertiary colour on there, and I think red's just a safe go-to for most armies, to be fair. So we're going to whack some of this down on there, being careful of our primary colours. If we get any paint on that cream or bone or the green, we'll just go over it with a darker colour we started with originally, and then tidy that up later on. There's no sense tidying up now because we've still got most of the work to do, so save all your tidying up for the end of the project. Otherwise, you end up picking up a model, making a mistake, tidying, making a mistake, tidying, and you end up getting frustrated and you'll never finish anything. So don't stress too much about your mistakes and your sins. We'll tidy those up at the end of the project. Would you believe me if I said that's most of our base colours down? Up next, we've got some gloss varnish, and this is going to be applied in gentle passes over all the work we've done so far, ready for transfers and oil paints in a bit. You can use rattle cans. There's some Winsor & Newton rattle cans, I believe, that do gloss varnish and matte varnish that I heard good things about, so grab some of those. Now, we're doing this before we do any metallics or any further details, things like faces, because by the time we put our varnishes down, we will lose our metallic finishes, and it will upset the entire composition of our textures. So this is the process I do it, and it's why I'm able to paint Heresy armies so quickly. Break it down into stages, and then understand where to invest the time and where to cheat. So we're going to do some light, gentle passes of gloss varnish over all these guys to cover all the bits we've painted so far. We don't want it to hit the model and be super wet and sopping and like slimy. We want to do gentle passes and dustings so that as it hits, it starts drying, and we get a really nice gentle shimmer, a really nice gentle shimmer across our models, ready for when we put our transfers down to help adhesion. Up next, it's time for the Miracle Juice, which is Micro Set and Micro Sol. So, what we do first is we cut our transfers out and we lay them out somewhere safe. I've done them on the top of my Crydroofy modular box lid. Now, you want to give these plenty of time to soak. I gave them about 5 minutes. Put them out, pop them down, a little bit of clean cold water. Give them a test and a wiggle with your brush, and when they start to lift off, you can apply them. Try and get them as central as you can and pop them down where you want them. Ensure you've got some micro set down first to help grip the transfer, and then wiggle it into place to make sure it's nice and central. Use the details of the model and the sculpted bits, things like rivets and bonding studs, to try and get it as central and neat as possible. Once you've got it in place, gently lay it down and attack it with your brush from the center out to try and air out any bubbles or creases. And then the most important thing you need to do is leave it to the fuck alone. The more we touch it and fiddle with it as it dries, the more likely it is to break or move and end up upsetting us. Put the hobby in the bin, take up golf, take up fishing, do something else. So, get it where you want it and then leave it be for plenty of time. So I've given it about half an hour. The transfer should be relatively flat. If they're not too flat, you can apply more microset, and again, gently space it out with your brush to try and get rid of any creases or folds. Overall, these are looking pretty good. Really happy with how they come together. If you've got, like the Centurion, where a transfer goes over a cloak, you can fanny about and cut it to get under the cloak, or you can just lay it over the cloak and we'll paint over that later. It's much easier. Microsol, the second solution to go down once that is completely dry, and I mean completely dry. Do not put this down if stuff's still wet, because you will move and wreck transfers and you will kick off. So once it's completely dry, gently apply this over the entirety of the transfer, again from the center out to try and reduce any risk of movement or tearing, and this helps adhere it to the transfer and look a lot more seamless. So we're going to do this over everybody, and again, if you've got a transfer that's going over a detail we're going to paint later, that's not a problem. That's absolutely fine. I always say to the guys at my painting workshops, if you can get a transfer to sit flat over a Space Marine shoulder pad, there is nothing in this hobby you can't do. So you might need to do a couple of applications at this, do it until your transfers are flat and good. Once they're over the shoulder pads, you can do anything. Over vehicles, it takes no drama whatsoever because of how flat they are. So again, give this plenty of time to dry, give it another 15-20 minutes. If you need to apply some more, apply some more. Just don't drown it because that risky transfer moving, and then leave it to dry, and after that we're going to gloss varnish them again. Here's how we're going. We're looking pretty good. The transfers are down. We're going to get ready to do some nice mucky oils and weathering in a bit. I do love those transfers. Transfers do make Space Marines in my honest opinion. And again, I am slowly starting to fall in love with this guy. I'm hoping I can do that banner some justice and make it look super, super wicked. And the Centurion, my least favorite model when the new Heresy came out, but this guy I absolutely love. Still no idea what I'm going to do with his cape, but we'll worry about that later. That is a future Chris problem. So I gave them all a nice slight dusting of gloss varnish again, gave it plenty of time to dry, and now we're going to do some oil washes. We're doing a 50-50 mix of burnt umber and burnt sienna from the Winton oil colour range. You can get these for dirt cheap from any hobby shop or paint store. And we're going to mix it with some white spirits and give it a good mix. This stuff can last for days. I think this is what I used a few days ago when I did those testers. You can bring it back to life with some white spirits. And we're going to apply this all over our mucky boys. I've got some plastic pipettes that I use to decant the white spirits. You want about 2 of those. You want it to have the consistency of a wash. You want it to flow down the side of the dish and be fairly translucent. So as you can see, I'm not going mad with this. I'm just applying it in dribs and drabs over the model so that it hits those recesses. The gloss varnish means the capillary action of the oils will flow nicely and the spirits will carry it to where it needs to be into all those nooks and crannies. So we're going to do this over all our models. I do this over the tanks, the infantry, everything gets the same level of treatment. In theory, the more you add, you can just take it away. If you need to increase the intensity, add more oils to your spirits. If you've not tried this before, I wholeheartedly recommend you give it a go. There's a lot of misconceptions and fears about white spirits damaging paintwork and oils ruining armies and models and stuff like that. Give it a go. It's very, very forgiving. It's very beginner friendly. You can get odorless thinners for people who've got lung issues and breathing issues, which is obviously important. But yeah, if you've not given this a go or are too afraid to, please, I cannot recommend it enough. It is an excellent way to get an entire army washed in the space of an hour, and then any mistakes you make, you can just undo them. Please, please give it a go. The biggest drawback with oils is that they do take a good while to dry. So I apply this, I'll give them half an hour to an hour to dry. You can leave them outside so the fresh air helps the spirits dissipate a bit quicker to help your oils dry a bit quicker. Don't leave it for days because it will stay like that and you will have wrecked your army. But again, you've got half an hour, several hours, an evening to get this stuff sorted as to where you want it. You can add more, you can take it away. Oils for the win. Here's our mucky boys. I've left them for about half an hour, 45 minutes, and it started to dry, but there's still a little bit of shimmer on there. That's fine. We're not going to stress too much. We don't want it to be completely dry because it'll be a pig to move later on. So all we're going to do now is tidy this up quite roughly and easily. So I've got some more case foam. I've dipped it in some white spirits and wrung it out so it's barely moist. You don't want it dripping or have any excess white spirits running off. You want it to be barely moist in your fingers. I'm then going to very gently and delicately start tapping at the model, moving some of the oils around, taking it off those large flat exposed surfaces while leaving it in the recesses. You can be as heavy-handed with this or as light as you want to increase or decrease the effect of the oils. Do be gentle though, do not go at it like you're scouring an iron pan in the kitchen because you will take paint off. Gentle strokes, gentle brushes, and just take it away at your leisure. And again, if you take too much away, add more on. If you need to take more away, just take more away. Oils, to me, are what enable army painting to be achievable to the caliber that I'm able to do it. So, again, for the third time in this video, take oils for a spin. So at this stage, you're going to want to have given them plenty of time to dry, and I mean a good few hours at least. Outside is helpful because the fresh air in the wind will help dissipate those oils and spirits a bit better. These are all now ready to go, so we're now going to apply some ultra matte varnish to these guys to give us a nice flat, smooth finish to our armor, which then means the other textures we'll paint in a bit will look like other textures, and it won't all just be one uniform matte finish or satin finish or gloss finish. Differentiating textures easily with the right products. So we're going to get some matte varnish. This is Mecha Color from Vallejo. It is very, very good. There are good alternatives out there like AK Interactive's Ultra Matte. And again, rattle cans are available. I know Colourforge do one and Winsor & Newton do one. So whatever your preference is, grab one. Apologies for the rocky camera. Clearly something was going on with the table. So using my airbrush, I'm going to give it a really nice light dusting with this ultra matte varnish. Similar to the gloss, we want it to hit and dry as it hits. We don't want it to clog and run through and leave great whopping puddles on our model because that'll leave a horrible white murky finish and it just doesn't look very good. Fixable, but doesn't look very good. So gentle passes, drying as it hits, and that's going to give us that really nice smooth finish that I love for my Space Marines. And here we have our lovely matte finish on our Space Marines, and it looks wicked. On vehicles in particular, this looks amazing because you get that really nice disparity between our base colours we put down, the oils in the streaks that naturally occur as we clean it away with a sponge, and then once we start applying the other textures, the metallics, things like skin, faces, flesh, the whole thing just starts to come to life and you get this really nice, easily achievable army finish that you can do across any project, any size, and have a good time while doing it. Now this step is optional. You can do it before we matte varnish or after. I probably should have done it before, but here we are. Again, another lesson in perfection. This stuff is the tits. It is fantastic. It is AK Interactive's panel liner. This is their dark rust, and it's just mega. You literally just apply the brush from the lid into the recesses. And again, if you've still got the gloss varnish, it goes and just flows everywhere you need it to. You can do this as much or as little as you want, but I think the orange rust clashing with the green is an absolute winner. So we're just going to run this into all the recesses and all the bits we need to do with the vehicles, again, in between all the armor panels and the interesting details, just where you want it to look like rust is sitting and starting to expand. Perfect for Death Guard. You can see how great these colours are sitting next to each other now. And the good thing about this panel liner is, much like your oil washers, if you go too much and make any mistakes, a little bit of oil on a sponge, just take it away, tidy up and try again. Absolutely mega stuff, 10 out of 10. Now our matte varnish is down, we can start going in with the metallics without risking of matting them down. Rough Iron from Army Painter's Fanatic range. I absolutely adore the Fanatic range metallics. I think they're underrated. They go on beautifully, the shimmer's fantastic. They thin down wonderfully. They also airbrush great as well. Definitely treat yourself to some if you've not so far. So we're going to apply this to all the trim and the kind of excessive details for our characters. I try and keep the silver colours limited on these guys because I think the warm bronze lends themselves more to the Death Guard colour scheme. So all the trim, all the studs, all the extra little kind of finite details, whack some of this on there in a couple of thin coats. And of course, don't forget all the little details on your sub-assemblies. Any little skulls, any little kind of like excessive metallic trimmy bits. Just whack some of this bronze down on there. It'll be reet. Up next is a paint that's been getting an absolute hammering from me, and that is gunmetal. Again, from the War Paints Fanatic range of Army Painter. There's not a great deal of silver on these guys. The weapons, bolters, things like that. The axe head for this guy. And then the venti bits on the power pecs. I like to do the silver. I think I do that silver on all the Marines I paint, regardless of their Legion. Just because I like it. And there's no better reason to do so with them because you like it. So apply this to all those areas. Again, I try and make sure this doesn't outweigh the bronze because the bronze complements the Death Guard colour scheme more. This Praetor's got some cool chainmail bits on him. He's also got like the ammo packs or some little kind of lockups on his back. Bit of silver in there, it's not going to hurt. Now, this paint is great. It's a good equivalent to Leadbelcher or Iron Warriors from Citadel. Prowood Krill's metallics are really, really nice. They're not as shiny as these, but they're very, very nice. They flow greatly, the pigment's great, and their dark silver in particular is very, very good. If you have a paint brand you like, let me know in the comments what you like, what you love about it, and your favourite paints from that range. Me personally, huge fan of Prowood Krill, huge fan of the metallics from Army Painter, and then oil washers. There is no single brand you owe your allegiance to. There is no single specific way to paint. I have always been an enormous advocate since becoming a commission painter. It's more about products than it is about techniques. The right products will help you achieve the techniques you want to achieve to get the painting done that you want to do. So maybe if you're thinking about a project, you're feeling a little bit intimidated, think about it that way. Think about the products you want to use as opposed to the techniques. Again, any questions about that, leave a comment. Meant by the little venti bits on the power packs, because my professionalism and terminology knows no bounds. Now it's time for some wishy washers, some good old acrylic washers. I've got brown wash from Prowood Krill, black wash from Prowood Krill. Those are two mainstays in my collection. I love them both. Do you remember when Agret Surshade and Null Noir were good? Instead, they changed the formula and made them all glossy and horrible. Broke my heart, it really did. So we're going to apply this brown wash over all the bronze details, and then we're going to apply the black wash all over the silver details. Nice and easy, not too much finesse. Don't drown the friggin' model in this stuff. Just use it to try and null down some of that metallic shimmer a little bit. Ready for when we highlight shortly. This will also add another depth of weathering and recess shading amongst our oil washes and just spice things up that little bit more. And like I mentioned earlier, black wash on your silver bits. You can, if you'd rather, replace this with a black oil wash. The only thing about black oil wash is that the black is incredibly strong. Doesn't matter how much you add, how little you add, it will turn the whole thing black. I saved the wash mix I did earlier with the oils. I'll add a bit of black to that later, and then if I want to, I'll apply that over metallic details to add a little bit of a darker hue to it, but also because it's got that brown and that sepia in it from earlier, you get the slightest hint of muck and grime. It's ever so good. I might not do that with this project. We'll see. I do like to do it for things like Imperial Knights and bits like that. Up next, we're going to do some silver highlights with this light silver from Dio. This is dry brush paint. I'm nearly out, which is a shame because it's friggin' brilliant. I need to get some more. And all we're going to do is lightly tickle all our metallic details with this. I've got one of these Chronicle RPG dry brushes, which are really good fun. We're going to use this on the silver predominantly, but then we're going to use it to gently tickle those bronze details. I tried a gold highlight on this first, and I didn't like it. I think it just made them look a little bit too regal. It was quite stark in the jump. So we're just going to do a really light tickle with this silver on all those sharpest bronze details. And then I think it keeps that kind of dark, menacing hue of that bronze to where we want it to be. Now we're going to go in and do some lenses with some bright ivory. Good for lenses, good for gemstones, generally good colour to have. Smallest brush you've got, I've got one of my 00s from Orange brushes here. I'm going to gently dot some of this into the lenses of all our guys. That includes the Marines, the Terminators, the lenses on all the vehicles and all the sponsons. And all we're going to do is pit those details out ready for a speed paint in a bit. This guy's got some gems on him as well that we're going to dot just to add a little bit of bling to him later. He is a praetor after all, he is a big boss of this army. So he deserves to have a little bit of flash on him. Another lovely speed paint. This is blood red. This is perfect for lenses. So all we're going to do is load a little bit up on a brush. We're not going to overdo it. We don't want to have loads on a brush to make load of mistakes. And we're just going to lob some of this in the eyes and onto any lenses we want to be red. Any speed paint colour will do that you want to use for lenses, as long as it's got bright or vivid on the bottle. Greens, blues, oranges, doesn't matter. Nuclear Sunrise, orange to complement the green. I'm going to do this on the lenses, not the lenses, the gems on the Praetor. And here is our Praetor, minus his base and his cloak, done. I did a little bit of red glazing on his axe to give it more of a power glow effect. Not completely sold on it. I'll play about with it and see how it goes. But now we're going to do his base. We're going to paint the whole thing in dark umber from Pro Acryl. You can do this with an airbrush, you can do it with a great big brush and just lap it on there. If you keep you guys separate off the bases, you can just spray them any brown paint. Whatever works for you, my guy. Now it was at this stage it became crunch time for the cloak before I start putting weathering powders on his base. So I went for a burgundy, and we are just going to whack a little bit of a airbrush burgundy gradient on there, leaving some of that black in the recesses. A few light passes to build that colour up should do us nicely. Up next we're going to punch up to this magenta colour from Pro Acryl. This is very, very thin, so airbrush is great. And we're just going to hit this on the higher kind of folds of the cloak to give us that more punchy colour. We're just about there, guys. Can you believe it? We've got some weathering powders, we've got Dark Earth from AK, and Mars from Soilworks. So if you've not used these before, they're incredibly messy. Put something down to protect your workspace. My table's built for painting, so I don't stress too much about it. Grab an old brush and gently tap some of this onto your base. Then stipple it into place with your brush, giving it a really good thorough work through, because anything loose on there will fall off and stain whatever it touches. Do not, for the love of God, do this over finished models, because you will get powder on them, and it will ruin their paintwork, and you will swear and get very upset with yourself. Apparently, so I'm told. So we're going to work this into our base and get it into the nooks and crannies of our texture that we did before we started painting. All of it coming together now. Catch his feet, catch his legs, get a little bit on there. I'll probably put a little bit on the bottom of his cape once I put that on there. And then all we're going to do is close that up and do our Mars one. The Mars one in particular is very, very strong. You don't need much of this at all, otherwise you'll turn the whole thing red. So using a finite amount, doing exactly as we did before, not changed my brush, not cleaned it. We're just going to add some of this onto other details. You can mix this up to be 50-50 if you want. I kept it to about 70% of the Dark Earth and then 30% of the Mars, just because, again, it is very, very strong. And I think it's a nice ratio that way with our colour scheme. So you can see there, like, I've just done a little bit and how potent it is. If you get it on your clothes and onto your desk, it is going to stain. So put something down to protect your workspace, keep your pets away, wash your hands thoroughly afterwards. It is mucky stuff, but it is bloody good. I've never had any luck with sealants. I find it ruins the effect and does away with it. So I just do it as that and leave it as is. Final step is the rims. We love a good rim job here at Unrelenting Hobby. We've got some Coal Black from Pro Acryl, absolute hero of a paint. I love it. All you do, palette, bit of water, base rim, couple of passes. You're done, guys. Get it done. Granted, when you've got to do this over like 40, 50 guys, it loses its appeal very quickly, but it is that final step of a project. You can smell that dinner on the cooker. You can taste that beer in the fridge. This means that is near. So get it done, get that project finished, and we'll get together at the end when it's all done. I said we were done, guys, but I'm going to Columbo and say, gee, one more thing I almost forgot. There's just a little bit of detail on this cloak I want to do just to up it that tiny bit. He's a praetor, he deserves the extra detail. All we're going to do is do a few highlights with that hot pink magenta we used earlier and do a little bit of highlighting and feathering on it just to make it look that little bit nicer. So you can see here, all I'm doing directional downward strokes alongside each other in little pillars, just to add that slight little hint of texture. It doesn't take a lot, it adds that little bit extra to the model that deserves it. And then all I'm going to do is use the side of my brush to do some little edge highlights on the creases and the very sharpest edges of this cloak. I'll do something similar to the Centurion with whatever colour I choose for him. There's only 2 characters with cloaks in this army, it's worth it at the end of the day, guys. It's at this point when you come into the end of a project, you can think, what can I tart up? What deserves the love? And this is also when you tidy up your mistakes. So tidy your mistakes with the darkest colour you started, the colour where the issues are. So if it's the bone, go for the dark ivory. If it's the green, go for the black green. You can then do some scratchy highlights with the highlight colour, or if in doubt, just do brown. Do a dark umber that we did for the base. That then ties the base colour with your weathering, tells the story for your model, gives the depiction of weathering on the battlefield, and it just makes the whole thing really nice and synchronised. Do this all at the end so that when it's all done and all the mistakes are fixed, all your basing's done, all your extra details are done, your army or your project or even just your one dude is finished properly. Here he is. What an absolute hero of Barbarous. He is going to go on to either make Mortarion very proud or very upset, because we don't know if he's a loyalist or a traitor. That is up to the lucky winner who wins these guys. So, that's how we did it. Let's go for a roundup on the project now. So there we have it, guys, the painting process on the Death Guard colour scheme. Now you port this over to the tanks relatively easily. You can emulate the airbrushing with rattle cans or dry brushing or stippling, stuff like that. The most important thing is the masking tape so you get those neat clean stripes. The other element is the varnishes, which again you can get from rattle cans from Winsor & Newton, so check those out and treat yourself. And then for painting the tanks, you follow the exact same process, the exact same steps. You just think more about your colour balancing. So I wanted to ensure I had more punchy green on the tanks than I did for the infantry, especially for the larger vehicles, things like the Spartan and the Typhon and stuff like that. Because it is such an eye-catching green, I think it deserves to be on those bigger pieces. There's a really nice, easy way to split your colours across your vehicles. So as you can see, I have split the Lamb Raiders into 3 parts with the sides in the centre. So 2 sides are the sepia, middle column green. I then inverted that for the Spartan and did the 2 sides green, with a centre column sepia. 2 dead easy to do schemes. All you'd have to do is mask off the 2 bits and then paint as you were. Then for the Typhon, stripes, transfers. Stripes and transfers always go together. Absolutely 100% heresy and stripes with transfers. The best way to do it. The Leviathan is very much similar to how I've done the tanks with the clear split segments, and then I did a big green fist because he's a big green angry boy. And then it's following the exact same process. I painted the tanks a lot quicker than I painted the infantry. because the surfaces are there, they lend themselves to it easier. There's a lot less transfers to deal with when you're dealing with, nearly 50 infantry and 6 or 7 tanks. You're going to get the tanks done before you get the infantry done. So with that in mind, let's have a look at how I split the army down into the time scale given to me. So I had the month to do it, 20 days. I was confident I could get the army done in about 10. So the first week, the first 5 days were dedicated to prep, printing, building, getting everything ready so that on the Monday of the second week, I could start painting. I ideally wanted everything primed on the Friday night before. I ran out of primer, sod's law, with a few tanks to go, but that's fine. I went out and got some that weekend. The second week, I decided to get the infantry done. That is the mass body of the army. So I split the 4 main infantry squads into 4 days, so 10 Marines a day. Using the process of the video you've just watched and how I painted it meant I could do 10 Marines a day. I did the Terminator and the Rhino on the Friday, I remember, because I was ahead of schedule and I was really eager to get them started. So I did the Terminators and the Rhino on the Friday, and that nailed the scheme home for me. So 40 Marines over 4 days, and then on the 5th day, I did something. On the 5th day, I think I made a start on the Predators. Then the following week, yes, because I got the Predators done, ready for the 3rd week. So then the 3rd week, almost everything was done. I just had the Spartan, the Typhon, the Lamb Raider, and the Leviathan to go, which was a doddle. So I did those over 2 or 3 days. I did get ill, so I had to have a few days off. I was in bed for a few days because standard, you get fucking flu when you're painting Death Guard. But overall, it was 9 days to get all of this painted. 9 days for 3,000 points. It took just about half the time to get it all prepped, printed and ready than it did to paint it. And that was all using the advice and the techniques in the video I've shown you today. You can apply this across any Heresy project. You can simply swap the colours out for what you need to do. If you don't know what colours you think would be good for a Legion you're wanting to do, drop a comment and I'll gladly give you my advice. But there you go. If you're not like me and you don't paint for 8 hours a day because you've got a proper job, simply break the units up into a week instead of a day. So 10 Marines over a week. Monday, get your initial base layers down. That will take you an hour. Tuesday, start thinking about your glossings and your transfers. Wednesday, get the oils down. Thursday, tidy the oils up. Friday, get some painting of the metallics on there. And you could get them all done within a week's worth of evenings. Now, obviously, work around your schedule, do a bit on weekends. The harshest critic for you doing your own hobby is yourself. Do not set yourself unrealistic goals. Do not put yourself off the hobby because it is glorious. We all absolutely fucking love it. The only person who's going to put you off it and should put you off it is you. And that is because you set yourself too much pressure. You don't think about the priorities in life. We've all got work. We've all got families. They're the priority. This is secondary to that. This is a treat. This is the cherry on top of all that. So don't feel like you're pressured to exceed or meet any hobby expectations. Set yourself a chill goal, get started to it. And if you just get the base layers done on 10 Marines in a week, amazing. That's a part of the way there. That's 10 Marines that have had paint on them that weren't painted the week before. So bear that in mind. As I said a couple of times during this video, this wasn't a process of perfection. I'm not trying to upskill or do anything better than I've done before. I'm not trying to do it to enter any competitive painting competitions or anything like that. I wanted to paint an army quick and for it to look good. And that was done using the techniques in this video. So I hope you enjoyed them and I hope you get to utilize them in your own hobby. There we are, guys. That is a wrap on the Death Guard for January's monthly muster. If you made it this far, I want to thank you sincerely for watching this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it and gained something from it. If you've got any constructive feedback, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Tell me what you enjoyed, tell me what you didn't enjoy, tell me what you'd like to see next time. If you've got any brands you'd like me to look at or any armies or systems, please let me know. This is my intent to be a monthly rolling thing. So the more systems, the more companies I can look at, the better it'll be for all of us. Nothing is off limits. So long as I enjoy painting it, it's going to get shown. I'm already excited to show off what's happening in February, and it will not be a Games Workshop system, so brace yourself for that one. This video and the work I do would not be possible without the support of my supporters on my social medias, my Instagram, my Facebook, my YouTube. As much as I hate them and despise social media, without it, my business would die overnight. So thank you very much to those guys who are involved with that. I run a Discord that has daily hobby advice and goings on. We support each other, we recommend products, we showcase what we're doing, we offer constructive feedback. If you'd like to get involved, I'll leave a link in the description down below. Likewise, all of my content is free of charge for absolutely everyone. I'm a champion for accessibility and transparency, and I don't want anyone to go without. That said, if you would like to support me further, a Patreon is available. There is a link for it in the description. This is tremendous for me. It means I can invest more in the content I create. and also ensure I can dedicate more time to it without worrying about how my bills are getting paid. So any financial support you can send that way is tremendously appreciated. Alongside that, there are several companies I work with who I champion. I'm not one of these guys who says any good thing about any company who wants to work with me or talk about me. I only support the companies I know who do excellent, good work and do not take the piss out of people. So for this project, I'd like to thank Orange Brushes. There's a link for them down below with a discount code. That gets you 10% off their brushes. They are fantastic. I use them in all my own personal and professional hobby. Do check them out. Alongside them, there is Cry Druffy, whose modular art box I use in every project. You've seen it in my videos today. This is great for those hobbyists on the move or don't have a lot of space to hobby. It means you can collapse it, open it back up, hobby on a TV tray in your front room with the wife watching telly. It's just one of those excellently useful tools that I don't want to be without. Likewise, you'll notice my super sick hoodie in the video. That is from John at Venator Gaming in Bedworth. I've been a long-time supporter of John and he's been a long-time supporter of me. And it's amazing to see my business grow and his business grow. So a massive shout out and love to him. Check out his store. He offers premium discounts and an even better discount if you sign up to their Centurion program. For all things Warhammer, Trench Crusade, Magic the Gathering, check out Venator Tabletop Gaming. Again, all the links for these are down below. And if there's an affiliate code, it helps you and it also helps me. And don't forget, you can win this entire Death Guard army for naught but £3 to enter the raffle for my mate Dave to help him get his store set up and get his life sorted out with an awesome new hobby career and dream come true. So be sure to click the link below, leave a donation, tell him Chris sent you, and who knows, maybe this army will be yours. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Thank you for commenting, thank you for subscribing, and be excited for February, and I'll see you then. Peace!